Hey friends, it's Jessica from Three Rivers Homestead, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about homeschooling. Someone had requested that I do a video on our curricula choices for this year, and so that's what I'm going to go over today if that's something that interests you. This is our 8th year of homeschooling, and my oldest is in. I'm really terrible with grades because we tend to not follow grades very neatly. They're kind of all over the place in the levels that they're doing in their various subjects, but I think I know what they're in. Gabriel, it would be in 7th grade in public school. David would be in 6th. Grace would be in 4th, I believe. Elizabeth, 2nd. And then Levi is 4, so I don't think I would even start him in kindergarten for another year or two. So that's what I'm dealing with. 7th grade, 6th grade, 4th grade, and 2nd grade. And like I said, we're kind of all over the place. My kids don't really fit neatly into grade level boxes, and that's for a variety of reasons. I let them sort of work at their own pace, and also I've had younger children. My kids are kind of in these sibling sets. I have 2 boys and then 2 girls and then 3 boys, and I'll find that the younger one of a sibling set tends to want to work at the level of the older one. They're all over the place, and you might find that when we're going over their subjects here. But through the course of my 8 years of homeschooling, we've tried lots of different methods, learning methods, teaching methods, lots of different curricula types, everything from a boxed curricula where you buy it all and all of the subjects are laid out and a schedule's laid out for you, and we did that our first couple years. The pendulum swung. We went to very radical unschooling where I didn't do anything structured, and we've done just about everything in between, and what we've settled on right now is what works for us. And with the homesteading lifestyle, what I like to do is focus on the foundations, the basics. So we do structured curricula in Bible, in math, and in language arts. I want children that can read and write really well and know their math facts and have knowledge of the Bible and the wisdom that's within that. And those are the foundations of our homeschool, and anything else we add on top of that is just bonus. And a lot of times the kids get to pick the curriculum that they add on top of that. And as I've mentioned in previous videos, in the summer months when we're really busy with outdoor work, sometimes all we're doing are those basics of math and language arts and Bible. In the winter months when we have a lot more time to hit the books, then we focus a lot more on the other subjects like history and science and anything else that we decide to add as electives to our day. So as you'll see that reflected in our choices here. Now before I show you the specific curricula that we're using, I'd like to show you how I keep it all organized, since I am kind of picking and choosing and the kids are all working at different levels and I'm piecing together all of the curriculum for them. It's very different than just using a boxed curriculum set that has everything at grade level and all of the subjects covered for you. And so I kind of have to keep track to make sure that I know that they're getting everything that they need over time. And so the first thing I did, I think this was called Hewitt Learning online, has a learning objectives list here that you can download and print off. And it has every grade up to 8th grade, I believe, and it's divided into language arts, math, social studies, and science, and it gives learning objectives that are grade level appropriate. And so what I do is all of my kids have a little color, and then as they've mastered that learning objective, or I know that we've covered it either in curriculum that I've purchased for them or in discussions that we've had, I go ahead and check that off the list. And then at the end of the year, I might sit down once and just kind of assess, okay, where are the areas where we're kind of missing things and we need to go in and fill in the pieces. And here's another great book for that. Now the first one that I showed was a free download online, but this is a purchased book. This is What Your Child Needs to Know When, both according to the Bible and according to the state. And this is by Robin Sampson. And I really like this. It's the same thing, basically. In the back, it shows evaluation checklists by grade and with different learning objectives, and it gives you up to 5 spaces for children's names, and then you can cross them off as they learn those different skills. And so I just think it's a good idea once a year or so. If you're not required by the state to have an assessment done, which the way we homeschool in Ohio, we aren't, it is important for me to assess myself what the children are learning and to make sure that they aren't having gaps in their education. And so that's what keeps me on track. Then the rest of this curriculum I'm going to show you are things that I've pieced together based on their interests and what I feel is important for them to learn. And I will make sure to link all of these resources down below in a link to my Amazon storefront. You can find all of this under Homeschool Resources. So let me get started with math. The very first math curriculum I ever used was Saxon Math, and I loved it so much that it's what we've continued with all these years. And this is the first year that I've strayed from that, but my younger girls are using Saxon Math, as my older boys have used all their years. And then for the first year, I've switched over my older boys to teaching textbooks. The reason for the switch was they, with the Saxon, they often had to wait on me to help with the lessons and to help with the grading of the work. And it was stifling how quickly they could move through the curriculum. They're very independent learners and they wanted to move through at their own pace. And so doing teaching textbooks, it's all done on the computer and it allows them to do the lessons whenever they want and the grading's done. And then what they do is if they have questions about anything they've missed that they're not quite understanding based on the way the computer is teaching it, then they come to me and I help with them that way. So this is our first year using teaching textbooks. I think David is in Math 7 and Gabe is in the pre-algebra. And they really love it. I did notice that coming from Saxon, teaching textbooks was a little bit behind the grade level equivalencies. And so they both had to move up and probably could have moved up and started halfway through the ones that we chose. But it was good review for them to start from the beginning. So the girls are in Saxon, the boys are in teaching textbooks. That's how we do math. I really enjoy it. The girls sit down with me and they're working together in the same level, and we go through the lesson of the day and we grade it right there together and go over any questions, and that works great for us. If I had all 4 kids in different levels of Saxon right now, that would take up probably 2 hours of my day between the lessons and the grading and the review. And so teaching textbooks has been a huge blessing in freeing up some of my time and giving the boys a little bit of independence. And based on how we're doing, we're probably going to move ahead with teaching textbooks for the older years, so long as the boys are enjoying that. Language arts, we've tried lots of different curricula over the years, and I'm very flexible on this. I like to look at where each individual child is each year and what they're struggling with. I had years where one of my boys was really struggling with writing, and just their essays and papers that they were turning into me just, I felt like weren't quite up to the level that they needed to be. And so we would purchase a specific writing curriculum for them that maybe none of the other kids had ever done, just to get them where they needed to be. And so I feel like as opposed to math, where it's pretty basic and they just need to move up the levels, writing, there's a lot more room for individual needs to kind of be addressed. So I'll have some kids that might do a special spelling curriculum just because they need that extra work, and other kids don't need the spelling. Maybe they just need writing, or they need, reading help or whatever. So we kind of cater it to the child's needs. My 2 boys are using these books. They're called Everyday Spelling, and I love these. I got these from a school auction. There was a local school that was closing, and they just had stacks and stacks of various workbooks and books that were for sale for very cheap. And this was in the beginning of our homeschool journey, so I picked up a bunch of these and I love them. They're a all-encompassing language arts book. It incorporates even cursive writing into it, and there's vocabulary, new vocabulary words they learn. There's learning about editing their writing. They're learning spelling. It's just a really great kind of middle school language arts program for them right now. And so the boys are doing these, and once they finish these workbooks, I will find a way to find other ones online. I'm hoping they still sell them because I really love these. And so that's what the boys do right now. That's pretty much it for language arts for them. They have done the Institute for Excellence in Writing in the past, and I really loved that writing curriculum. I highly recommend it if you have a child that's struggling with their writing skills. And then what else I do with the boys is every week they're assigned it's like a book. They're called the Sower series, and it's a little biography on a famous person throughout history. And they have to read the book, and they have to do a writing assignment for me. Generally, it's just like an essay on what the book was about or what they learned about the person that they were reading about. And then together we go through and we edit their writing and then talk about how they can improve their writing skills. And that's what they do for language arts. My girls this year are working together, and they're finishing this one up right now. As I said, I've got a child in 4th grade and a child in 2nd grade. They're both learning at the 3rd grade level right now, but they're almost through this, so they'll be moving up. And this is from Master Books. This is Language Lessons for a Living Education. I really like this Master Books language arts curriculum. I feel like it's really well put together. It's Bible-based, and the lessons are short and sweet, but that can also be a downside. The lessons are so short and sweet that sometimes we need to do 2 or 3 of them in a day just to feel like I'm getting enough, giving them enough knowledge. So it's great. This can be done independently, or it can be done with the parent kind of walking them through it. Once the girls get through this level of Master Books, they're probably going to move on to the Institute of Excellence in Writing writing workshop. They're going to move away from this into something a little more advanced. So my girls both currently need a little extra spelling help, and so I purchased this book. It's called Spelling Power, and I purchased this at the beginning of our homeschooling journey, and this is just a great resource for spelling. It has spelling lists for everything from beginning 1st grade all the way up through higher levels. So this is a book that if you purchase it, it will last you through several grades, multiple grades worth of work, and so you don't have to buy a new one. This isn't a consumable workbook. It's just an all-encompassing book. It has the spelling list for every level, and then it also contains tests that can place the child where they need to be in the book. And there are consumable notebooks that you can buy for them to do their weekly spelling work in, but we just use a sheet of paper, and so I love it. This is a one-time purchase. It will probably last us through 18 years of homeschooling, and just it's a wonderful resource for spelling. So my girls are doing this along with their master's books, and that I feel like is a great combination for their language arts needs at this point. Next is Bible, and Bible is another one of our foundational subjects. We're a Christian family, so I feel it's just as important as their math and their language arts. And Bible is one of the subjects that we do all together as a family. It's how we start our homeschool day. And so once I get the baby napping in the morning, I sit down with the children and we read through this. It's the 1-year Bible, and it also has a guide that goes with it. And so we'll go through the questions of the day in this as well if it's something that warrants a little additional discussion. And what I like about it is that each day has a passage from the Old Testament, one from the New Testament, a reading from Psalms, and a small reading from Proverbs. And then throughout the course of the year, you'll go through the whole Old Testament, the whole New Testament. I think you go through Psalms twice and Proverbs twice. And so the readings are just long enough to keep the little ones engaged and listening, and it isn't overwhelming. Now, what we found is that we don't get through this in 1 year. It says the 1-year Bible, but it takes us about 2 years to get through the whole thing because we take breaks from homeschooling where we might not be doing this reading together. And then on Sundays when we do church, we're not reading from this. We're doing our church together. And so we don't necessarily read the actual day. Like if today is November 10th. We don't necessarily read November 10th in here. We just go whatever is the next day that we left off at. And there's no rush on reading God's Word. If there isn't a goal to get through it in a year or to get through it in 2 years, we just want to take our time and really digest what we're reading together. And so there might be days where, this reading takes an hour because the kids are really into it and have a lot of questions. And there might be days where we just read through it really quickly. read from the companion some of the questions, and we move on. But this is really foundational for us and has sparked some wonderful thought-provoking discussions, relating it to current events, relating it to things we're studying in history or whatever other subject. So love this as a resource. And then my older boys also do apologetics. This is this is David's. He's in 6th grade, so he's finishing this up, and Gabe's in a little more advanced. But this is an apologetics course through Master Books, and they have little books that go along with it. And what I like about it is it has them memorizing scripture every day, and I feel like that's important for them. So they just read a little passage, they have to write it, memorize it, and then I kind of quiz them on that. And they have that in addition to the Bible work that we do together as a family. We do teach cursive here in our house, and typically I don't begin that with the children until they prove to me that their print is nice and neat and that they can handle, moving up to cursive. And so currently Gracie is doing cursive, and she has been for the last year and is pretty much done. And Elizabeth is almost ready to begin. And so Gracie just finished this workbook. I love it. It's adorable. It's cursive handwriting workbook for kids, but it's jokes and riddles. I figure if they're going to have to learn cursive, why not make it fun? And so every day there's a joke for the day, and then she has to copy it down here. And so she has fun. She'll copy it in her cursive, and then she'll go around and tell the joke to her siblings, and they really enjoy hearing that joke of the day. So that's a really cute resource. But to get them started, I'll start with Elizabeth here coming up. I have these wipe erase cursive writing cards, and so on one side it just has the letter they can wipe and erase, and on the back it has some practice words. And so this is how we begin teaching. And then on top of it, I do have a chart on the wall that gives all of the cursive letters. So as they're learning and first starting out, they can reference that chart as needed to kind of read the words that they're supposed to be copying. So highly recommend these. These are a great resource. Another thing that we teach in our homeschool is keyboarding. And so what I use, this is called Typing Instructor for Kids. We do not have home internet connected to our computers in our home. It's only through our smartphones. And so the kids needed a typing program that was a CD-ROM that we could download onto the computer that they could use. Most typing programs nowadays are internet-based, and so we obviously couldn't use those for them. But I really like this. This is cute. There's a lot of games for them, so it feels like they're playing a video game on the computer, but it's actually teaching them their typing skills. And it says for ages 6 to 12. I currently have my 13-year-old is finishing it up. He started it when he was 12, and then David at 11 is doing it. And then as soon as they finish, Gracie will probably start using this. So history is another subject that I like to do all together as a family. We've been using Story of the World for probably 5 years now, and I really like it. There are 4 books in this series. They start from the very beginning of time all the way up to modern present time. And when we started using this and all of the children were little, there is an activity book that comes with each of these books, and it provided coloring sheets and maps and things that the children could do. And so as I would do our daily reading, the children would color from the coloring book. And then after doing that for about a year, I just decided that it was sort of unnecessary work. They were actually more engaged in the reading and not really doing the coloring. And so after we got done reading, we had to take the time to do the coloring sheet. So I just cut that out. And so now we just do the reading from it. And I like it. It's just long enough to keep their attention and spark some really good questions. Now we do this for all of the children. And then my older boys, now that they're in middle school, are requiring a little extra additional work. So they're getting their history through books that they read. This is All Through the Ages, A History Through Literature Guide by Christine Miller. And it has every historical thing that you can think of. Like World War I is right here. And then it has resources of books for all ages. So starting at even as young as kindergarten, there's a list of books that you could read to address that subject. 1st through 3rd grade, 4th through 6th. All sorts of biographies, historical fiction, goes all the way up to 12th grade level reading. And so I would rather, instead of me just forcing the boys to learn through doing worksheets or random assignments, want them to read a book and actually kind of enjoy that learning. So this has been really helpful for us. And then based on whatever book they're reading, I'll generally have them do a writing assignment to kind of show me that they've actually read it and digested the information. Science is something that we generally don't use structured curricula for. I have in the past had children that have requested something. Maybe they're really into chemistry at the time, so they wanted to do a specific chemistry workbook or course or something like that. We've done some earth science for some of the kids, and a lot of those I purchased through master books, and I've really enjoyed those. But I find that living on a homestead, we're surrounded by science every single day. And so at least for these elementary and middle school years, what we're doing through our everyday life is really preparing them well. Someone had asked me this question last month, and I sat there thinking, in the last couple months, my children had witnessed their mother giving birth. They had, hatched chicks from eggs, hatched butterflies from cocoons, and they've been gardening, and they were creating fertilizer, and you just using chemistry to make soap, all of the things that we do here on the homestead. So I guess for me, I don't necessarily feel the need to have them sit down and do a worksheet on those items when we can provide life experiences to teach them the same concepts. And I know that as my boys move more toward high school level, we will be looking at more age-appropriate science curricula, but for now, we just sort of life school, I guess, the science classes. I've done a video before on how I do our homeschool planning, and I'll link that below, but if you've watched that, we do kind of blocks of time. So every 5 to 7 weeks, we kind of do a stretch of school, and then we'll take a 1 or 2 week break and then do another stretch. And so what I like to do within that 5 to 7 week time is pick some subjects that we're going to learn about together as a family that might not be coming from a curriculum that they're doing throughout the whole year. It might just be things that are relevant to that season of time that we're in. And so, for example, during this last 5 week stretch, we've been learning about the election process and about how the Electoral College works. And so I've gotten a lot of resources and books and been teaching them about that. We've also been doing a unit on money and how banks work, and we're going to be moving into how the stock market works. And so that's been really fun. So I guess we don't use formal curriculum for those subjects. They're just things that it might come up and the kids say, I really want to learn about dinosaurs. And so I know that in the next 5 or 6 week stretch of school, I need to find a way to do some lessons with all the kids on those subjects, because you want to, if the spark's there and they're really interested in it, you want to jump on it, because that's when they're really going to be engaged and want to learn the material. And I'd rather focus on those subjects than just arbitrarily pick some things that I want to teach them about and have them maybe be less focused and interested. The final portion of our homeschool curricula kind of focuses on career training. Several of my children from very young ages have had very strong passions and interests that haven't changed over the years. For example, my oldest son, from the time he could walk, loved robots. But then as he got even older, he realized that no, it wasn't exactly the machine part that interested him, but the computer aspect. And so he's just had a passion for computers and learning everything about that. And then my next son, he loves to bake, and in the last few years, he's just, this desire in him to learn about more baking has been there. And then my daughter, a few years ago, discovered a love of sewing and has decided, at least for now, that being a seamstress is something that interests her. And I know that they're young and those desires and interests could change as they get older, but for now I want to provide them ample opportunities to learn. And so as part of their curriculum, I like to include things to help them grow in those areas. So for example, my son who likes to bake, he expressed interest in opening a booth at the farmer's market next summer selling some of his baked goods. So he this year is working through a book called Homemade for Sale, How to Set Up and Market a Food Business from Your Home Kitchen. This is by Lisa Kiverist and John Ivanko. So one of his school subjects this year is doing all of the research. He'll be looking into cottage bakery laws here locally and in the state of Ohio to kind of see what he is allowed to sell and how he needs to go about, applying to have a booth at the farmer's market and those kinds of things. So that's a big part of his schooling. My oldest son has lots of books and lots of software on his computer for learning computer programming because that's what he's really into. He uses Scratch and Python right now to do a lot of his coding, and so a large portion of his school time is up on his computer doing that. And then of course Gracie is my little seamstress, and so she loves to sew. We have lots of books on that for her, and she does a lot of sewing projects throughout the week to help her grow in that area. Elizabeth is in 2nd grade, and just which would be normal for a child her age, hasn't really like zoned in on one thing that she's really interested in. So she just sort of bounces around and does whatever she likes to do, kind of has her time free while the other kids are pursuing these interests. So I hope you found this helpful, and this is just what works for us in this current season of life. And if I've learned anything in my 8 years of homeschooling, it's just that every season is going to bring unique challenges and is going to change what works in your homeschool. Every child is going to bring unique challenges, and what worked for one child may not work for the other. And so you can't just, at the beginning of your homeschool journey, pick one curriculum and say, this is what I'm going to use the whole way through. And, maybe that works for some people, but for us, that would have never worked because my kids all just needed different things. But this is just what works now, and it is subject to change in the future. You never know. You never know what the next homeschool year will bring. So if you have any questions about any of these resources, please feel free to leave a comment or message me on Instagram, and I'd be happy to help you get a little more insight on the way these curricula work. And I will link below everything that I've mentioned here in my Amazon storefront, so you can find that there. And that's all I have. I'm going to go now and work on getting some homeschool lessons done. I hope your day is blessed, and we'll see you again soon.